Hey everybody, I am working on a scripted video. It is basically an encapsulation of everything I've said so far related to the book The Narrow Corridor by Darren Acemoglu and Mr. Robinson, whose first name escapes me at the moment. But this is for Paul in Texas. He wanted the paradoxical Leviathan video, which is basically about the United States and how it is almost the textbook example of a shackled Leviathan, but the benefits are definitely not broadly or equitably shared. So the shackled Leviathan, the paradoxical Leviathan video, I think will have to be a second video that'll come out next week. But this week I'm laying the groundwork to get there for you, Paul. So the Financial Times, that globalist newspaper out of London, which represents the interests of the financial class, the ownership class, globally speaking, they have once again offered me full access for a month for $1. And once again, I've said sure. So this whole aftermath of the Qasem Soleimani murder, assassination, whatever you want to call it, I'm getting the Financial Times perspective on it. Also, based on a suggestion that I saw on Twitter yesterday, I tuned into the live feed for Al Jazeera English, which you can get 24/7 via YouTube. And wow, it is weird. It's like they were reporting the news on that network, whereas news here in the United States, it's much worse on cable TV, but even NPR, which is my primary contact with the mainstream media, the news just seems to be an exercise in worldview management and basically corralling people and telling them, if you associate with a particular faction or class in this country, there are certain opinions that you must hold and others which you are not allowed to hold. And that seems to be the primary function of the news media here in the U.S., whereas on Al Jazeera, if that function is happening, if it's being played out, it's not aimed at me. I'm not the target audience. So either I'm not seeing it or it's not there. Or, compared to what I'm used to in the U.S., it's practically not there. That worldview management segment of the news. But I'm going to read a couple paragraphs here and pardon my failure to get the names of all of these authors correct. I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. Here they are. But Qasem Soleimani's successor vows to expel the U.S. from the Middle East. Well, stupid. That is so dishonest. The U.S. was leaving anyway. About the only way you could get the U.S. to stay would be to try to kick them out. Or kick us out, I suppose I should say. I should take full responsibility and ownership of the actions of my country, even if they are actions which I would never have consented to or agreed to or endorsed, like the invasion of Iraq. Anyway, Brigadier General Ismail Ghani told state television on Monday that Iran would take its revenge by uprooting the U.S. from the region and continuing the work of the martyr Soleimani as robustly as he did. Asked to promise revenge, he said that God is the main revenger and that things will be done to avenge Soleimani. All right, and I've made statements in an interview on somebody else's show and in recent videos and in a recent podcast of my own in support of Trump, but it's not in support of Trump in a vacuum. It's a response to the bad faith criticisms of Trump that I hear every single day. I am no fan of the guy, and this next bit, there's nothing I can say in defense of this. U.S. President Donald Trump, who approved Soleimani's killing, kept up the pressure on Iran by threatening to attack more than 50 targets, including cultural sites, if Tehran retaliated. Well, they're going to retaliate. Ego, status, credibility in the eyes of their populace and in the region, the eyes of the populations of various countries in the region, demands retaliation. They absolutely will retaliate. You cannot target cultural sites. I believe it was the Iranian president who asserted that that would be a war crime. I am not an expert on what does and doesn't count as a war crime, but targeting Persian cultural sites in order to punish the modern state, the modern theocratic, despotic state of Iran, It's criminal. Just in my common sense view, it is criminal. Does it count as a war crime technically? I'd be surprised if it didn't, but I don't know for sure. But, you can't dismantle Persian history to punish the modern state of Iran. Total disconnect. It is an ancient civilization. It is one of the richest. So, illegitimate move. Can't do it. Really, there's nothing more to say on that score. Okay, Iraq is threatening to expel U.S. troops. Again, we were leaving anyway. The only real way to get us to stay will be to tell us to get out. How do you enforce that? If the U.S. isn't willing, you can't enforce it. If the U.S. is willing, demanding that we do what we were doing anyway is the most counterproductive action you can take if you really want the U.S. to leave. But I'm starting to think that nobody in the region wants the U.S. to leave. I mean, if Iran wants the U.S. to leave, they are frickin' morons, for pursuing the course of action they're pursuing. And I don't believe they're morons. I think most people, most citizens of the United States would like this basically foobarred from the get-go response to the 9/11 attacks 20 years ago, almost. We want it to be over. We want U.S. troops extracted from Afghanistan, from Iraq. We certainly don't want them in Iran. We don't want them in Syria. The U.S. populace has no appetite for this anymore, although the classes from which the soldiers are drawn, which is to say, working and poor people in the middle of the country who supply most of the bodies that go into the meat grinder, their sense of honor will require that they rally around the president and support their nation in a time of conflict. That's just how it goes. And to demand that they do otherwise is just, it's unrealistic and it's not a good faith demand. You can't demand that. All right, the final piece of this. Iran has basically said in response to the U.S.'s actions that they're not going to abide by any aspect of the nuclear deal. Well, the U.S. pulled out of the nuclear deal. So, you are punishing other countries. Iran, I'm talking to you now. You're punishing countries who had nothing to do with this strike on your major general of your expeditionary forces. And really, to me, this just demonstrates that was never a good faith agreement to begin with, and that your actions in the present validate the president's actions to withdraw from that agreement. Final piece, again, on Donald Trump. As far as I can tell, the man doesn't have any principled ideological convictions. He's interested in his own well-being. I do believe he's interested in his legacy as president. He wants, victories as president for his own egoic purposes. But he also knows that he has to accommodate, interact with, compromise with the national security state. They are not going anywhere. They were here before he was. They will be here when he is gone. Their power is not answerable to the ballot box. And yet they control enormous portions of, the federal budget and agencies like the CIA. I don't know that they're doing it now, but they've certainly done it in the past, engage in criminal activities to fund their off-books operations. None of Trump's actions can be explained merely by an appeal to his personality, and his unsavory characteristics and habits. That is all. I now return to my notebooks. I'll talk to you later.